Your knees hover over the cool stone, the hole an oval shadow that smells faintly of sour and wet limestone. On the floor, water threads along a shallow channel, ticking softly. A rat rustles somewhere behind the bench. You don't turn to look. To your left, a stranger's tunic brushes your thigh. Both of you pretend not to feel it. The sponge on a stick leans in a jar at your feet, waiting, darker at the tip, damp with the morning's history. A cough, a drip, a quiet shuffle. You exhale, because there isn't anywhere else for the body to go. You woke with a dry mouth, your tongue dusty, the straw under your shoulder pressed into a grid you can still feel as you stand. The stair groaned the same way it always does when you shift your weight to the left. Down in the alley, the first breath is cool and carries smoke, a thin sour thread from last night's wine, and the faint animal note of something living in the wall. You walk downhill toward the sound you trust, water. At the fountain, the lip is worn slick by hands, cups, jars. People are already there, moving the way they do when everyone knows what to do and no one says much. A boy dips a clay mug, drinks, dips again, his mother taps his wrist, not hard. An old man braces a jug against his hip and lets the stream drum into it, his eyes blink against tiny spray that kisses his lashes. The spout does not rest. It sings a single note against stone, steady, while the overflow slips into a little gutter and wanders away. You press your palm under and feel cold bite the web between your fingers. You cup and bring it to your mouth. It tastes like rock, a mild metal, something clean and something not. Grit stays in the corner of your lips as if the day has already eaten and left crumbs. You swallow anyway. Your stomach tightens and then lets go a little. A neighbor tips a pot and scrubs the inside with a handful of sand. The rasp is oddly satisfying. A sliver of onion skin escapes and circles the drain like it has a place to be. Two boys slap their sandals in the shallow, dirty edge of the basin, laughing in whispers so their laughter doesn't disturb the line. Someone clears their throat. No one says anything. This water is everything. Drink, rinse, wash a wound, hush a child, dampen a cloth to wipe a face. You rinse your eyes, it stings just enough to wake you. You taste stone again. You feel better, not clean, just arranged. A breath of something deeper slips up from the grate in the street. The same water goes underground. It keeps moving under your feet, taking the city's leftovers with it and sometimes bringing its own scent back for you to notice. You shake your hands dry and your fingers still feel wet. You turn downhill, following the current you can't see. The shade in the latrine is a relief that smells like a cupboard left shut too long. The temperature drops as you step in, stone holding last night's cool in its bones. Benches run in a neat curve, their holes polite distances apart, polite by someone else's measure. No partitions. Eyes glance. Eyes look away again with practiced courtesy. The sound here is a thin choir. A trickle moves along the drain at your feet. Sandals scuff. Soft talk rides the damp air in low threads that don't rise above the walls. A throat clears and then doesn't need to clear again. Somewhere, the faintest plop, like a small stone dropping into a quiet pool. It's ordinary. The ordinary is what makes your skin tighten. You gather your tunic to your knees and lower yourself to the stone. The edge is cold and smooth, almost polished, the way a well-used step is polished. You balance without thinking, because everyone learns, and the body remembers. Air moves under you with a chill that makes your thighs tense and then unclench. You look at the wall, at a little scratch where a knife once tested its edge, and you let your eyes rest there. It helps. Smell collects in layers. A sour top note from urine. A deeper, softer sweetness you try not to identify. Wet limestone holds it all like a damp cloth holds past meals. You breathe shallowly through your mouth and still taste it. It isn't dramatic. It just stays. The sponge is to your right in a jar of water. The wood handle is smooth with hands. The top is darker, softer. You reach and pause, because everyone pauses. You lift it and it drips, not much, just enough to mark the floor. You dip it again, push it under the surface until your fingers feel the swell of the sponge loosen, and you lift it through cloudy water that tries to hide in the light. There's a little sting of vinegar, faint, almost reassuring. It means someone tried. You do what needs doing with quiet efficiency, the way people do things that no one is supposed to watch. The stone under your palms is cool and real. Your legs tremble in that small, private way that happens when you try to be still but the body insists on being alive. A bubble rolls up from the drain and breaks with a soft kiss, a darker line creeps along the sole of your sandal. You pull your foot back just enough and accept that the edge has already been touched. A man with a magistrate's ring sits 2 holes away, the gold catching a square of light that slips past the doorway. He stares at the same nothings you do. He is a model of calm dignity and clenched jaw. When your eyes meet, both of you nod, once. It is a little bow to the fact that you are humans in a room designed to remind you of bodies. A rat flickers in the corner of your eye, more sound than sight, a rustle behind the bench. A moment of held breath travels along the row like the smallest wave traveling through a cloth, and then you all allow the moment to pass. No one mentions it. There is nothing useful to say. You rinse the sponge again longer than you need to, because the sound helps. The water clouds more, then clears as the overflow trades places with what's inside. You put the sponge back with the dark end up so the next hand will know which to hold. Someone coughs, impatient but still gentle, because there's a rhythm to this room and everyone wants to keep it. You finish, and yet you don't feel finished. You sit 2 breaths more, because leaving too fast feels like invites, and staying too long feels like confession. The air touches skin in places you don't want to think about. You pull your tunic down like closing a door. The fabric is rough in a way that feels good for a second, like a towel that has lived too long and knows how to scrape. A soft aside hums in your head, something you've heard in the market. Waste flows into the sewers, and the sewers are proud tunnels of brick and dark, except they breathe. On some days, the city exhales through them into rooms like this, and rooms like this learn to accept that cities have lungs, too. You step toward the basin. It's a shallow bowl with a lip that's missing a small chip. The water is clear here because it's new. You cup it and pour it over your fingers. It slides away quickly, running off your knuckles and fleeing down the channel like it has somewhere to be. There's no soap. Your palm searches for a rough spot on the wall and finds it, a scratchy patch that steals a thin film from the skin. You rub, scrape, rinse, rub. Your hands feel fresher and somehow more aware of every surface nearby. That's the trick, cleaner and more alert to what isn't. You dry your fingers on your tunic because everyone does, leaving a darker bloom that will fade again in the sun. You feel the wet cling at the hem against your thigh, a small cold flag you'll carry for a few minutes and then forget. The doorway frames light like a promise. The air outside moves. The air in here holds you. You take one more breath of the damp, limestone room, and the city smells reach in as if they were waiting at the threshold. Warm bread somewhere, leather, crushed herbs, and that quiet bass note the drains always carry. You step into it. The stone underfoot warms half a degree. Your eyes squint and then soften. The city's breath is warmer but not cleaner. You keep walking, because that's how you do it. You pass through what everyone passes through, and the day settles into place around you. The stair up to your room has a memory. Each board answers your foot with a different note, a soft sigh, a question, one that complains every time and still holds. Your palm slides along plaster that's been smoothed and resmoothed by years of hands. It leaves a faint powder on your skin, a quiet chalk that clings until you rub it off on your tunic and pretend you meant to do that. Inside, the air is its own stew. Stale bread from last night. Smoke that never quite leaves. Old sweat, the familiar kind, not angry, just present. Linen hung to dry in the dark and waking up still damp. The room takes what the street gives, keeps it, and gives a little back. Walls here breathe through cracks, not through windows. You set your small bundle down and listen for what's usual: the soft coo under the eaves, a distant cartwheel complaining, the whisper of a broom in a neighbor's doorway. In the courtyard, a bucket waits by the well and 3 chipped basins lean like tired dogs. A rope sags between 2 nails, hung with shirts that have never once felt truly dry. Your fingers find the edge of your own tunic and realize it's cleaner than the room, for now. That won't last. It never does. Laundry means friction, not foam. You kneel by the basin, pour a little water from your jug, and add a handful of ash saved in a clay bowl. The ash is soft until it's not. You grind cloth against cloth, grit against fiber, and the water darkens in a way that's satisfying and a little sad. Your knuckles redden. The rhythm takes over. You stop noticing the mild sting until you pause and the skin feels new and thin. A neighbor leans out of her doorway and nods. She has a bowl of lentils in her hands and a baby asleep against her chest. She hums to the baby without moving her mouth. Across the courtyard, someone shakes a rug, a small cloud lifts, sparkles in the slant of light, and then settles on everything like a reminder. You tilt a chamber pot with careful respect and pour into the gutter. The alley drinks quietly, as always. The trickle finds its path along the same groove it chose months ago, and you pretend you don't see where it goes under the wall. The stone there is always darker. No one points it out. There's nothing helpful to say. Smells drift the way gossip does. A cumin-laced steam ribbon slips under your door and you know someone is frying something in oil that's done this too many times. Your stomach stirs, then second-guesses itself. A faint fish note follows a beat later, then a sweetness like musty fruit. Walls are generous with other people's dinners. You sit on your stool and run thumbs along the seams of your tunic. This is the part you barely see and always feel. The seam warms under your nail. There's a tiny movement you pretend is a thread. You pinch, roll, and flick toward the floor. You don't look closely. Looking too closely turns a habit into a problem, and you have enough of those. Upstairs, a boy coughs and then goes quiet. He scratches at night. Today he sleeps late. His mother hums the same 2 notes when she washes out a cup. The tune climbs the stair, settles in your ear, and makes space for the day. You splash your mouth with watered wine because it feels safer than the fountain sometimes. The sour bite is small and steady. You swish, spit into the basin, and watch a pale thread spin away and then cling stubbornly to the rim. You wipe it with the back of your hand and rinse the spot, as if that matters, as if any one gesture is the one that keeps you from something you'd rather not name. Dust lives here like a resident. A thin grit coats your toes. You rub your foot along your other ankle and it moves, not away, just around. The floor gives you a gift every time you stand. You sweep with a bundle of twigs, and the sweep makes a sound like a whisper that wants to be a sigh. The line of dust travels forward and then rearranges itself when you blink. There's a vent hole near the ceiling, a careful gap where a sliver of outside shows itself. Smoke curls up past it like a lazy snake. Your eyes water without drama. You blink, blink again, and the room slides back into focus. The air has edges today. You turn your face toward the hole and take the air that's willing to come in. It's not much. It helps anyway. A jug clinks somewhere. A neighbor laughs once and then swallows the rest. A hawker's cry floats up the alley: garum, fresh enough, olives, brine slick. You can almost taste the salt. Your tongue goes heavy with it for a second, imagining. You decide you need the kind of air that moves. The choice isn't a debate. It's a quiet agreement between your skin and the day. You tie your belt, check the knot with the same little tug you always use, and feel the clean of the bath still clinging to you like a shy friend. Outside, it will fade. It always fades. You take your jug to the courtyard and set it by the door. You tuck your tunic, smooth the front with both hands, and step toward the stair. The wood answers you again with its familiar notes. You know which creak to skip. You know which board wants your heel in the center and not the edge. You know this house like you know your own tired breath. At the threshold, the alley's air reaches in with a mix of cool shade and warm promise. You stand a heartbeat longer than you need to, letting the room stew recede and the street spice arrive. It smells like leather, garlic, damp stone, and a passing breath from the drain that keeps its own hours. You're dressed in the city's perfume before you take the first step. You choose the street's blend over the room's simmer, and the day pulls you gently downhill. Hands touch everything. Fruit, coin, shoulder, nose. They wipe on tunics, then on baskets, then on children's hair. Then those same hands break bread, tear fish, twist cork. You carry your own hands like two small truths you try to keep honest. It works until it doesn't. You scratch an itch without thinking. There it is. A scribe sneezes. He tries for quiet and fails politely. He laughs at himself, and a neighbor pats his back with a flat palm. The sneeze lingers in the air like a fine powder, visible only if you pretend you see nothing. You turn your head and look at a statue's knee as if it has something to tell you. Dust forms a private relationship with your toes. It packs itself between, soft and gritty, then cakes as you walk. You rub one foot against the other and the dust shifts position like a restless sleeper, never leaving, just choosing a new spot. The ground is a field of crumbs, bread, herb stems, thread, what-ifs. They cling with a persistence that feels personal. A wealthy man passes in a cloud that thinks it's winning, sweet resin, a pinch of frankincense, oil heavy with a garden. It meets sweat halfway. The mix doesn't argue. It just decides to be the new normal for a few breaths, then lets the square reclaim the air. You try a bite of salt fish wrapped in bread. The first moment is comfort, salt, chew, the hum of protein that tells your bones they're invited. Then a back note slides in, faintly off, like a string tuned almost right. You keep chewing. You chase it with watered wine, and the sour fruit clears a path. Sun fits itself into every joint of the forum and leaves no corner alone. Stone throws the heat back up at your shins until you feel cooked from the ankles first. The air smells like warm limestone, oiled leather, crushed herbs under sandals, and the soft tang of so many mouths working at once. You move with the pull of people, shoulders brushing, palms catching brief, accidental touches that stay longer than they should. Vendors talk like a river, olives, try them, not too salty, cheese, generous cut, bread still warm. You step close and the olives shine in a bath of brine that looks like a quiet pond. A woman cracks one open with her teeth, spits the pit into her palm, and laughs. You reach for one. Your fingers come away slick. Salt hits first, then a faint bitterness that sits in the back of your tongue as if it intends to stay for a while. Cheese sweats softly in the shade, a pale slope sunning itself behind cloth. The rind has a clean sharp smell that's almost sweet if you breathe just right. The vendor cuts a sliver and lays it on your palm with a blade he wipes on his apron. The taste is good until it isn't, a tired note whispers up after a second, and you swallow past it because food is food and the day doesn't love the picky. You can't ignore your thirst. A boy with a bucket and a wooden ladle moves through the crowd. He lifts the ladle for you as if it knows your mouth. The wood carries a memory of other lips, a thin varnish made of people. The water is cool enough to be kind. You drink. You try not to taste the ladle, and you taste it anyway. A barber's stall unspools steel sounds into the square, scrape, rasp, a quick tap of a blade against bronze. Men take turns on the stool, beards lathered with something that smells like herbs bruised in oil. The blade kisses skin, schemes stubble, nicks once. A thumb presses. A cloth pats. The next face sits, and the blade goes on as if that small red dot never happened. There's relief built into the city, a corner stone dark with use where men turn their backs for a quick stream. The surface shines like river rock, polished by years of small transactions. Someone pours a little water from a jar over the streak, and the trickle joins a gutter already on its way somewhere you don't want to follow. You pass a fuller's yard. Urine lives here as labor. Jars wait like soldiers, pale liquid catching light. Cloth goes in stained and comes out shocked bright, as if the city refuses to let color keep secrets. The smell is sharp and sure of itself. You keep walking. Work is work. The nose understands eventually. A dog drinks from a gutter, tongue quick and competent. It knows what it needs. Your throat dries at the thought of needing again. Heat presses a hand to your head, gentle but heavy. The crowd slows. Voices soften to conserve themselves. You think of the baths like a promise held in a ceramic jar: warmth, scrape, rinse, cold, relief. You drift toward shade under a colonnade. The relief is thin but real. Your skin cools in stripes, warms in gaps. You run a fingertip over your forearm and feel a faint film you've collected since morning: oil, dust, spice, touch. It's yours and not yours. You're ready to trade it for steam. The baths wait, breathing in the city one person at a time. You move that way, because afternoon always points there. Shade gathers under the colonnade like a favor, and you take it. Your feet remember the way, down one street that smells like leather, left where garlic rides the air, right where the drain exhales quietly. The city's sounds stretch into afternoon, fewer hawkers, more sandals, a lower hum. You pass a shrine where resin sweetens the corner, the smoke lifts and clings to your hair in a way you'll only notice later. The baths pull people the way ovens draw bread, steady and certain. You join the flow. The pavement grows cleaner near the entrance, as if swept by the promise inside. A boy weaves ahead with a bundle of oil flasks, their stoppers dark with use. Another carries a strigil and calls to a friend. The metal flashes once and disappears into the crowd. Laughter floats in pockets. The air cools a breath, then warms again where bodies stack close. At the gate, you press a small coin, skin to skin with the attendant's thumb. It leaves a damp crescent on your palm, a brief trade of salt. He nods without looking at you. The queue breathes forward. You stand between a wool cloak that holds the morning and a bare shoulder slick with oil that holds noon. Garlic, wool grease, the clean metallic hint of water beyond, your nose makes room for all of it. The baths are social lungs. They inhale the city, hold it in heat, and exhale quieter, smoother people. You feel the shift before you see anything, a padded hush that stone gives to voices, the soft slap of wet sandals as others exit, steam's invisible hand finding the edges of your face. Inside the apoditerium, the ceiling seems higher than necessary, as if the room knows it will need to hold more than clothes. Light tilts in, pale and forgiving. Niches cut into the wall offer small caves for bundles. You pick one without thinking, tuck your belt, your tunic folded over your arm, and leave the sandals where your feet can find them by memory. An attendant glances at your bundle with a neutral curiosity that could become help or loss. You press your fingertips to the fold, marking the weight in your mind. A tunic lost isn't tragedy, it's inconvenience soaked with embarrassment. You breathe and decide trust is the faster choice today. The room's floor is a map of damp footprints, each cooling in place. You add yours. Skin, newly bare, feels both relieved and shy. Air slips across your chest unlike any fabric. The itch you didn't know you had softens. People speak more softly in here, jokes land with a smile instead of a bark. You're all about to share heat and ease and the thin film that rises when oil meets sweat. It makes strangers polite. A doorway breathes warmth. Another exhales hotter promise. The tepidarium draws like a warm hand. Your pores open a little just standing there. You flex your fingers, feel grit loosen at the joints, and let a small expectation settle low in your ribs. Soak, scrape, rinse, cold, reset. You step toward the warm room, leaving your day folded in a niche and your worry about it folded smaller. The stone answers your soles with a gentle chill. A thin ribbon of steam curls along the threshold and touches your shins. You close your mouth on a quiet sigh you didn't plan. The line behind you moves, patient. The baths are ready to take your layer of the city and give you back your skin. Warmth greets you like a patient animal that's already chosen your lap. It doesn't rush. It settles. The air is a steady wrap, no scorch, no teeth, just a kindly press that persuades shoulders to drop. You didn't know you were holding your jaw until it unclenches. Breath broadens. You taste damp stone and a whisper of cedar someone rubbed into a beam years ago and keeps rubbing by existing. Light comes softened, as if it has been strained through linen. The walls gleam with a thin sheen, not wet, not dry, the look of a place that's always just been touched by steam. Benches curve along the room in smooth stone, their edges rounded by years of backs deciding to trust them. When you sit, there's a faint tack, oil, skin, time, nothing dramatic, just a small handshake from all the people who were warm here before you. You lean back and feel your own surface loosen. The line where dust, sweat, and city rested all morning begins to lift like a peel on cooling fruit. Your fingers test your forearm. There's a slide, a soft dampness, a little resistance that gives. The sensation is modest and oddly satisfying, like rolling a bit of wax between finger and thumb. You know scraping comes later. For now, your skin softens into the idea of being helped. Voices float, rounded and low, shaped by heat. Talk bumps gently against grain prices, a complaint about a mule, somebody rehearsing a joke they'll tell better after the cold plunge. Laughter lives here without edges, it echoes once and blends into the room's breath. You catch a fragment about a neighbor who thinks he's important in the morning and sits like everyone else in the afternoon. No one argues. Heat is honest that way. An old man across from you rubs his knee in slow circles. His eyes close to half, and his mouth softens into the kind of smile that doesn't need company. He lifts his heel, rotates his ankle, winces less, breathes out more. When he notices you noticing, he nods as if to say the water and the warmth do what? A drop gathers on the ceiling, waits, fattens, lets go. It lands near your shoulder and runs a brief, cool path before the room warms it again. You lick your lip without thinking and taste a clean mineral, then the faintest human salt. It's not unpleasant. It's simply the truth of a place where bodies practice being bodies without apology. You oil your skin in small circles, thinly, because you've learned too much is a joke you'll pay for later. The scent is ripe green, olives warmed by touch, with a shadow of last year hiding in the bottom of the flask. The oil blooms on your chest and then whispers away under the heat, readying the top layer for the strigil's work. You rub a little behind your ear, along your collarbone, behind the knee. These are the places you forget until they remember you. On the far bench, a boy tells a story with his hands, all wings and arcs. His father listens with the patience of a man who's been scraped more years than the boy has seen. A woman coughs once in the doorway and doesn't come in. The tepidarium is where people make up their minds. You're making up yours. You stretch. Elbows move back until the chest opens like a window you were sure was stuck. Your spine ticks softly, one vertebra at a time, like a polite row of lids being set onto jars. Heat reaches the small muscles that spend their mornings hiding and convinces them to step out. A thin film gathers under your palm when you rest it on your thigh. You could write your name in it, if names mattered here. Your thoughts slow to match the room's rhythm. The day that crowded your mouth with tastes and grit recedes to a manageable distance. You don't forget it. You agree to meet it later. For now, you exist at the pace of capillaries, pores, steady breath. Through the next doorway, the hotter room stirs the air with a pulse. It's a promise and a dare. Your pride feels it first. Your body answers by reminding you it's the one that has to stand up afterward. You weigh comfort against the clean that only follows sweat and scrape. You sit one more minute, feeling the warm bench make you a softer version of yourself, then push your palms against the stone and rise. You pass the threshold slowly so the body can negotiate. Heat thickens, climbs, lays a hand across your face. You carry the tepidarium with you in your loosened skin and leave behind a faint oval of warmth where you were, a small, temporary ghost. The room hums after you as you go to earn the relief you've just rehearsed. Heat steps into you before you step into it. The doorway keeps no secrets. You pass, and the air thickens, heavy with breath and stone and a dilute sweetness like leaves boiled down until they give up. Your lungs shorten their sentences. You take smaller sips. Sweat arrives without asking. Light thins into fog. The room's edges soften into suggestion, arched ceiling, dark mouths of braziers, a basin glinting like an eye half closed. A wall tile, red with age, sweats along with you. Sound goes padded, a ladle taps a rim, a man exhales on a count, water answers stone with a hush instead of a splash. You wet your palms in a basin where warmth gathers like a quiet argument. The water carries a metallic tang that nips at the small cuts you forgot about. It's not pain. It's a nudge that says you're alive in detail. You pour across shoulders, down the neck, into the curve of the collarbone. Heat meets warmth and shakes hands. Your skin loosens its guard. Oil comes first. A thin ribbon in your palm, green gold and patient. You spread it in circles that grow larger without thinking, chest to ribs, ribs to belly, out along the arm like you're teaching yourself the map of you. The scent is olives with a memory of dusted branches. Your fingers slide, the body answers. A film forms, simple and human. A friend appears from the steam with a grin softened by heat. He lifts his strigil like a small crescent moon and tilts his head. You nod. You turn, brace one hand on stone slick with old stories, and feel cool metal rest against oiled skin. The first draw is deliberate. Not sharp. Blunt, sure, certain. It gathers what the morning layered. It leaves behind a lighter version of you. There's etiquette here. You don't linger to prove something. You stay long enough to earn the scrape and not so long that the room has to collect you. You share bowls without ceremony and do not look at what they hold. You keep your voice low because the steam makes it carry farther than you intend. You leave a space on the bench wider than the one you found. You oil your calves because you always forget them. You draw the blade slow along the shin where dust likes to live. The line it leaves is clean in a way that feels almost ceremonial. You rinse the strigil again, tap, watch the cloud bloom, and let it go. A hand you don't see sets a fresh ladle by your elbow. You murmur thanks to the air. In here, the room itself does favors. Heat folds itself around your ribs and asks if you've had enough. You answer by standing and feeling your knees decide. A gentle wobble is your body's way of reminding you about the cold that waits. You take one more careful breath, pull the last line of oil from behind the ear, and draw it away. The skin under your fingers squeaks faintly when you test it. Clean isn't a fact, it's a sensation you're allowed to have for a little while. On your way to the door, the brazier's throat glows, a dull heart behind a grate. The tiles near it hum with built heat from channels under the floor that carry fire's breath where it needs to go. You can feel the design under your soles, a warmth that thinks in networks rather than flames. You step across it and the soles of your feet sing one soft note. You pause at the threshold and let the cooler air on the far side touch your face like a cloth set in a window. Behind you, the steam keeps erasing edges, keeps loosening strangers into something like neighbors. Ahead, a bright surface waits with coin-cold promise. Your chest tightens in anticipation and welcome. You turn your back on heat and carry it with you anyway, thin and glowing, toward the shock that will close every open door in your skin and s. There's etiquette here. You don't linger to prove something. You stay long enough to earn the scrape and not so long that the room has to collect you. You share bowls without ceremony and do not look at what they hold. You keep your voice low because the steam makes it carry farther than you intend. You leave a space on the bench wider than the one you found. You oil your calves because you always forget them. You draw the blade slow along the shin where dust likes to live. The line it leaves is clean in a way that feels almost ceremonial. You rinse the strigil again, tap, watch the cloud bloom, and let it go. A hand you don't see sets a fresh ladle by your elbow. You murmur thanks to the air. In here, the room itself does favors. Heat folds itself around your ribs and asks if you've had enough. You answer by standing and feeling your knees decide. A gentle wobble is your body's way of reminding you about the cold that waits. You take one more careful breath, pull the last line of oil from behind the ear, and draw it away. The skin under your fingers squeaks faintly when you test it. Clean isn't a fact, it's a sensation you're allowed to have for a little while. On your way to the door, the brazier's throat glows, a dull heart behind a grate. The tiles near it hum with built heat from channels under the floor that carry fire's breath where it needs to go. You can feel the design under your soles, a warmth that thinks in networks rather than flames. You step across it and the soles of your feet sing one soft note. You pause at the threshold and let the cooler air on the far side touch your face like a cloth set in a window. Behind you, the steam keeps erasing edges, keeps loosening strangers into something like neighbors. Ahead, a bright surface waits with coin-cold promise. Your chest tightens in anticipation and welcome. You turn your back on heat and carry it with you anyway, thin and glowing, toward the shock that will close every open door in your skin and s. There's etiquette here. You don't linger to prove something. You stay long enough to earn the scrape and not so long that the room has to collect you. You share bowls without ceremony and do not look at what they hold. You keep your voice low because the steam makes it carry farther than you intend. You leave a space on the bench wider than the one you found. You oil your calves because you always forget them. You draw the blade slow along the shin where dust likes to live. The line it leaves is clean in a way that feels almost ceremonial. You rinse the strigil again, tap, watch the cloud bloom, and let it go. A hand you don't see sets a fresh ladle by your elbow. You murmur thanks to the air. In here, the room itself does favors. Heat folds itself around your ribs and asks if you've had enough. You answer by standing and feeling your knees decide. A gentle wobble is your body's way of reminding you about the cold that waits. You take one more careful breath, pull the last line of oil from behind the ear, and draw it away. The skin under your fingers squeaks faintly when you test it. Clean isn't a fact, it's a sensation you're allowed to have for a little while. On your way to the door, the brazier's throat glows, a dull heart behind a grate. The tiles near it hum with built heat from channels under the floor that carry fire's breath where it needs to go. You can feel the design under your soles, a warmth that thinks in networks rather than flames. You step across it and the soles of your feet sing one soft note. You pause at the threshold and let the cooler air on the far side touch your face like a cloth set in a window. Behind you, the steam keeps erasing edges, keeps loosening strangers into something like neighbors. Ahead, a bright surface waits with coin-cold promise. Your chest tightens in anticipation and welcome. You turn your back on heat and carry it with you anyway, thin and glowing, toward the shock that will close every open door in your skin and s. You wet your hair and the shock writes its name on your scalp. It's clean metal, a bell rung inside the skull that leaves a friendly ring. You find the ledge and sit, shoulders under, chin above. You count your breaths. They even out faster than you expect. You laugh once, under your breath. It sounds like a small bark, almost embarrassed. The room forgives you. Everyone pretends not to notice everyone else, a courtesy that works. You look down through the wavering light and see your legs as if they belong to a careful statue. For a moment, the body isn't sticky or heavy or borrowed from the city. It's yours. You lift one hand and feel air bite the wet skin. Goose flesh arrives in a small parade and then calms. Belief says cold closes what heat opened. That's the story. Whether or not it's true, your mind accepts the logic: open, clean, close. Reset. You climb out on a slow exhale. Water slides back into itself with a sound like silk dropped on stone. You drip cold footprints across the floor, each print a brief mirror that vanishes as you walk. You're awake in a way coffee could never teach. The warm rooms release you into the dressing hall like a friend returning you to the street. Air here is temperate, human, touched by oil but not heavy. Voices are calm. You find your niche with the same glance you practiced, that half-casual check that hides a small knot. Your bundle waits. Relief loosens your shoulders, a notch you didn't admit was tight. You open it and notice right away, one sock gone. You allow yourself a thin smile. The baths take a tax. Today it's fabric. You pat dry with a woven cloth that has seen better threads. The rub squeaks faintly on your forearms and chest, that clean little sound that means the strigil did its job. You dab oil sparingly, collarbone, forearms, knees, just enough to keep skin from chapping when the city's dust starts its climb again. The scent lifts green and warm, kinder now that it's thin. Around you, small dramas stay polite. An attendant jogs after a boy with somebody's belt dangling from his fist. A tunic drops, and laughter ripples like water, more amused than cruel. Someone counts coins twice, quiet. Someone else sighs when their good sandal turns out to be a cousin of their old sandal, not the same at all. You tie your belt with the knot your hands could make in the dark. You press the fold of your tunic where it crosses your ribs, feeling the fabric's stubborn roughness and the soft heat still stored under your skin. You slip on the remaining sock and pretend the bare foot is a choice. It will be, soon enough. A soft aside passes in your head, the rule everyone knows and no one writes: trust the baths but mark your bundle, bring a coin you can afford to forget, leave pride in the hot room and take caution to the door. It's not fear. It's respect for how many hands move through here. You lift your bundle, lighter by one sock, heavier with calm. The door breathes the outside in. You carry your skin like fresh laundry into a city that will test every seam by nightfall. The door opens and the city folds you back in. Evening air slides over clean skin like cool cloth. Smoke from cook fires hangs low, edged with a resin sweetness from a shrine where a wick still glows. Your pores, newly shy, notice everything. A sleeve brushes your arm and you flinch, not from fear, from awareness, transfer, immediate and quiet. You walk with the small pride of someone briefly reset. Every touch is louder now. A child darts past and his shoulder grazes your hip. It leaves a faint warmth that doesn't belong to you. A corner vendor fans coals with a broken basket lid, the breath of the fire arrives with meat, fat and charcoal. It smells like comfort and ash. You choose a small loaf, warm at the core, and a sliver of fish. Your fingers find the same oil they left behind and pick up new oil in exchange. You wipe them on a cloth you keep for this and remember it already served at noon. You drink watered wine from a cup the cellar dips into a shared jar. The rim is clean enough. The sour is gentle, patient. It rinses the mouth the way evening rinses the heat. A man turns his back to the corner urinal stone, and you look away with practiced courtesy. A splash follows, a quick rinse from his jar, and the trickle finds the gutter. Your clean legs feel suddenly like unwritten tablets. You step a little wider without making a show of it. Cleanliness here is a negotiation you keep signing. A soft truth carries itself on the night breeze: there is no victory, only intervals. You walk through a breath from a sewer mouth and it's like the city sighs through its teeth. The air cools a degree and carries a wet mineral note, faint but insistent. You angle your path around a damp shine on the stones. It reaches anyway, kisses the edge of your sandal once, and leaves a dark crescent you'll forget until you see it later. Sabura's slope takes you up and asks for sweat in return. You give it, reluctantly at first, then with acceptance. A line forms at your neck where the tunic meets skin. It's clean sweat, if that's a thing, fresh, shaped by evening effort instead of the day's stew. You feel oddly protective of it. A neighbor meets you at the alley mouth with a fig in his palm, split to show good seeds. You take it. The skin gives with a soft pop. Honey sticks your fingertips. You lick them because that's what you do with sweetness and because the cloth in your belt is already working overtime. The neighbor nods as if you've agreed on something important. Maybe you have. The fruit leaves a perfume in your nose that covers harsher notes for a block and a half. Windows breathe dinners. Lentils steam with a cumin edge. Garum frowning in a pan and then deciding to be useful. Bread that will be stale by morning but is a promise now. You pass a doorway where someone pounds a garment against a board, droplets arc into the air, flashing for a heartbeat, and you hope they're just water. A laugh climbs the stair, slips into the alley, and breaks into smaller laughs as it goes. Inside the insula, air is familiar but less hostile after heat, scrape, cold. Your skin carries stored warmth in like contraband. The room receives it and softens around you. You set the bread down, the fish, the cup. You shake your straw mat with a quick snap. Something small moves in the corner of your eye. You decide it moved out. You decide it every night, and every night it agrees with you by not participating in the conversation. You eat with the patience of someone who knows late food sits better. The fish, salt forward, leans into the bread's warmth. Wine loosens the tight places in your face. Your hands, rubbed on the same tired cloth, feel almost acceptable until your thumb finds a rough patch at the base of your finger and rubs at it without thinking. A drip ticks from the courtyard, steady, unhurried, like a second clock set to the city's slower heartbeat. A pigeon flutters under the eaves, then settles into a coo that sounds like agreement. Distant laughter stumbles and recovers on the street. Somewhere a jar lid clinks home. Your room holds these sounds and folds them into its own smell: soapless cloth, damp wood, a memory of oil from the baths that still clings in the hollows of your elbows. You lie down while the mat still remembers being shaken. You smooth the cover with your palm and feel grit argue under the weave. You lift, shake once more, and accept the compromise. The skin on your back finds a spot that's cooler than the rest and sighs into it. Clean is a temperature, a thinness of surface, a way breath moves. You have it. For now. Darkness takes the corners first, then the center. Your eyes drift to the vent hole where a thread of night leaks in. It smells like ash cooling, olive oil gone quiet, faint human salt on stone, and resin that will wake for morning prayers. You pull your tunic to your shoulders and feel the day reach for you even now, softly, politely, with the patience of dust. Sleep stands at the threshold with a question you hear every night: how long can this last? You answer the only way that works here. You close your eyes and let the city breathe through you. You didn't get clean. You got a brief truce, skin reset, nerves leveled, inside a city that asks you to share air, water, tools, and the small, stubborn hope of feeling human. If this quiet walk through Rome's messy, communal version of clean helped you breathe slower, subscribe and stay. There's more where this came from: nights in other cities, other kinds of grit and grace. Tell us where you want to wake up next, and we'll meet you there.